I would say, top 3 skills in life when we're talking about things like this is to recognize excuses. You don't know it. You're just allowing your anxiety to dictate your future. And that is a significant mistake. I'm scared of it all, but I follow the fear. Hey guys, if you missed out on the last conference in Nashville, Tennessee, you don't want to miss out on the next one. It's April 28th through May 3rd, Orlando, Florida, the Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center. You made a mistake missing the last one. You don't want that to happen again on this one. 5 days of some of the best training you're ever going to experience packed into one event. We have an early bird special right now, $50 off. Use 24 early bird on our website, streetcop.com. Look for the conference, click the link, register today. If you want to get significantly better at this profession in 5 days, don't dare miss out on the 2024 Street Cop Conference.
111, 110.
You training to be a street cop?
One of the things hard thing I'm trying to deal with now is if I pick apart a cop, and you must have dealt with this.
I think Jerry's fighting Jerry the most.
No, I just don't want to sell out. I don't want to sell some cop in Omaha, Nebraska out that because he had some bullshit interaction because he was trying to do the best he can. Because the danger is, like I said, my big audiences are families. And they don't like us very much, Dennis. And we're losing that fucking battle. And I'm telling you, they're regular supporters of ours are like, fuck that. They're out. And if I put something critical,
I think you're seeing it one side. I think the other side.
But that's the only side I have.
No, it's not.
And I'm listening.
No. I think the other side is like, thank God there's a guy out here teaching these cops, showing them what they did wrong here so they can do right in the future.
But have you ever fought
I fight everybody.
Have you ever fought the instinct like, man, this would be financially beneficial for me to completely eviscerate this dude?
You don't
because of his tactics, because of his attitude, whatever it is.
You could do it softly.
You don't do anything softly.
Yeah, we do. We actually do. We try to like really explain it, and we get criticized on it at times. And so like the rub is like, hey man, we have to do this stuff.
Well, I won't take that back because I've seen you actually criticize a cop and say, listen, this wasn't his fault. This was a supervisory fault. I've heard.
Well, it's not. It's honestly, it's
training.
Almost never the cop's fault, outside of the fact that like once in a fucking millennium, some fucking guy has other motives and just completely unprofessional. But how do we blame police officers for things that they were never trained on when you need 7 million tools to do this job because it's ever changing every day? Plumber,
right?
Guy who changes fucking water heater is going to run into 20 different problems, and he's going to know how to resolve all those things. The cop's going to run into 50,000 different problems and hasn't been told how to do one of them yet.
And should be an expert in all of them, according to the public.
Expected to be. So I don't think that you have to sell people out. I think you can say, like, with compassion, I don't fault this police officer. I'm aware that you guys weren't trained. The reason I make this video is to help the training. So what could have been done differently here? So in the future, it is done differently.
Yeah, I get that.
If I don't say anything, it'll never change, and we'll have an incident.
Yeah.
And we do that with cop shooting. People are like, oh, yeah, we'll always get the fucking the guys on the couch with their fucking phones out.
Yeah.
But the reality is if I don't remind people of how dangerous this job is, or to stay off the driver's side, or to keep your tourniquet on your fucking body. Right, there's one I just did recently. A trooper in Arizona gets shot. He's got to hobble back to his car to get his tourniquet from his fucking mat pocket door.
Right.
So I sit there and say to myself, I'm pretty sure he lived by the grace of good God. If I don't say anything, how many people are going to die? If I do say something, how many guys are going to grab their tourniquets and put them where they belong on their belt after seeing this video? You tell me which one. Is it my concern of me getting some backlash, or am I more comfortable with the 7 people who might save their life nationally or worldly? So for me, my intentions are correct. I am not trying to step on somebody's back to make myself look better. And I think as long as that's clear, you don't have to worry about what people are going to think or say. So you have to, you've got to get comfortable with that stuff. You're fighting yourself. You're telling yourself too many things. You're worried about too much stuff. You'll never know till you try it. I'm worried about everything. I just don't let it dictate my life.
Did you deal with? I'm dealing with this now. You had a point where you realized, listen, I can't do this shit by myself. I can't be my social media manager. I can't be my video editor. I can't. I think
before you say that, I think you need to audit the days of your life and how you spend your time. I know you have a special needs kid.
Yeah.
So with that being said,
I know what you're going to say. You have more time than you think you have.
you just need to audit your life. I mean, people think I work like a lunatic. I think there's two things you got to do. You need to audit your life. And I think you need to make sure that you're understanding what a priority is.
Right.
And so working is just working. Working on a certain priority is actual smart working. I would argue that you may work 16 hours a day and it's half as productive as working 8 on something that actually matters.
Oh, 1,000%. But that's a trap too, because you have such a good time doing it. All of a sudden, you put in 16 hours, and
well, that's not a trap.
Well, it is if you sacrifice family, if you sacrifice other things.
It's part of the deal, dude.
That's what I'm saying. No, but you must have arrived to a point where you have a staff. You have people doing this shit.
Well, so it went like you understand what your priorities are. As the growth progresses, why am I sitting here signing purchase orders for 2-3 hours a
What
day,
is my time
licking
worth?
stamps? Could I do one more class or add another class and then hire somebody to do this for me?
Yes.
And so then it went from that to like now it's getting a little bit bigger. The person who's doing that says, hey, there's too much going on. I need help. And then you maybe bring somebody in to do like bookkeeping, or maybe you have excess capital and say, okay, I'm going to start investing into this company of bringing people in who are doing more branding for me. Somebody who's going to monitor our social media. And essentially what I brought in was a videographer to create content to not only help with the social media, but to create content. So it's a progress, it's a step, and there are shortcuts to it, and that's to trade off some of the ownership of it. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess the point I'm making is like, not everything's going to work, but you can't keep talking yourself out of everything you're trying to do because you have something caught up in your brain that's a roadblock.
Now listen to me, man. I have studied what you did here. Studied it, and I would
don't study it too hard because it's not perfect.
No, but the easy way to say it's okay. Let's just replicate, do everything he did. Replicate it.
You can't.
But mine is a different model a little bit. Because we go back to the sexy thing. People aren't going to freaking knock down their chief's door and say, I want to go to that class. So targeting the individual cop going around the administration, it's not the precise way for me. And what I have that you don't is my shit is becoming more and more mandatory. So my decision point where I'm at is, okay, should I just ignore marketing the cops?
If there is I think you do both. I think you could market to cops and civilians.
Should I be bringing in lobbyists? Like people with skills to talk to politicians?
I think you should do it all.
Of course you do.
I don't know why you wouldn't. And see which one works. That's what we're doing. We're doing it all. That's it. I've really never played the political game. So I don't have a lot of expertise in that field.
Yeah, me neither. And I don't like it. That's the problem. I don't like it.
Well, like it or not, sometimes you have to do things like that for the better cause. So if we know that we have to do something we don't like, but in the end, the person who deserves and needs this training gets it because of our uncomfortability, well, then I'm okay with that. I just wouldn't be okay with they get a shit product, I get money because of who I knew.
No,
so it's almost like pulling the wool over the eyes. That's what they say, pull
wool over the eyes, yeah.
You know, and kind of maybe tricking the wolf a little bit to get to the flock, to give the flock what they need. I
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if you're doing it with good intention and not just self-serving, and that's the unfortunate thing, but that's also what gives us as a company clout, is that we don't do things that are meant for us, even though we do things that are meant for us. Sounds strange, right?
No, it does make sense in a lot of ways. It does make sense.
This has not been about what can Dennis Benino get out of a company. This has been about what can Dennis Benino do to change the world. And there is a piece of it that it's like, I feel like I deserve to be compensated fairly, but not with a greedy sense of mind for the work that I'm doing. Because I could take these skill sets and enter into another path. I could have in the past already. If I would have stayed in real estate and just forfeited street cop training, you would not have the stories, you wouldn't have the branding. You wouldn't have the fans, the culture, the shifting of how things are being done in this field, the betterment of mankind. But I would have more money if I chose to go into real estate. So when I do receive money, I feel like it's well-deserved and still short of where I could have been. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that for the purpose.
Cops, I think the cop instinct is pretty finely tuned, and mine would be at the top of it. If anybody got the impression you were in this just to get rich, it wouldn't work. Cops would read that a mile away.
It's been tried already, and everybody's fed up with those people. That has been the premise.
Even if you were in this to get rich, you still can't argue with the product.
No question about it, right? And that's where the comfort level is for me. Like I don't mind taking your money. Actually, I'm delighted to.
Right.
And people can understand on the other side of things. Like we have employees, we have expenses, we do all these things. We're constantly reinvesting, which means more people get training.
Do you think it's a cop thing where we just have this thing in our heads where we have to be the noble public servant and it's kind of
I think it's
icky.
A human thing by little
to
by
get
little.
paid?
No, I don't think so.
I don't
think it's a cop thing. I think it's a human thing, and I think that there's just. A friend of mine says to me, two thoughts. The first one is there is a mistrust, I think, in our minds with taking money because of the existing companies that have been taking our money and what they've given us in return. So I think it's a breath of fresh air when a company says, pay me the same, you're going to now actually get what you should have gotten before instead of getting the stuff that we've gotten. And I don't want to mention any company names, but you've been in the muster rooms, you've seen the videos. Remember the tapes used to come out or the DVDs?
Yeah.
And you're like, you've got to be kidding me. This is what the fuck you guys pay. How much was this DVD set? And if you forgot, dude, they were very expensive.
Yes.
I'm not talking which ones, but like it was junk. Just nobody was doing anything. So they need to have some kind of solution for something. So I'm comfortable with creating something great and receiving funds for it. I think a lot of people are skeptical of it because for the history of this profession, we've been sold crap 97% of the time. So we get frustrated. So it's a refreshing thing. Number two, a friend of mine, when we were in real estate, became a realtor. And he said, I don't like the feeling that people pay us 5 or 6% commission to sell their house. I feel like it's a lot of money out of people's lives. And I went, I couldn't agree more. He goes, why do you do it? My response was, because they are going to pay it anyway. They're not going to have an option. And I'd rather them give it to us and us serve them well. So I know it was going somewhere. I know a lot of people in this real estate game that are pieces of shit, that are looking to just sell people shit that they don't want. Because the whole game of real estate essentially is turn it over as fast as possible if you really start understanding the numbers behind it. And I said, so I'd rather be comfortable the other day collecting that 5 or 6, or usually it's 2.5, like 2.5, 3% is the split. And taking that money knowing that I gave them so much good advice where they made a comfortable decision and they're going to be happy and not regretful with the purchase of that house. Where I know for a fact people have a lot of angst with their realtors for not pointing a lot of things out. So the money's here. It has to be spent. I'd rather see people spending it with us. And on top of that, I know that when you take our training programs, your career is going to improve. Your knowledge base can improve. Your lifespan will improve. And your personal life will improve. Because I think we not only give practical, useful tactics, I think there's an overall perspective shift on how to see things and how to see this job. This job was taught wrong forever. The whole thing was taught wrong. It still is being taught wrong. And I said this yesterday to my friend Matt. We are essentially now having to do the cleanup job of the previous decades of the generations before us, of them destroying this fucking thing. This thing's between the distrust with the police because of a lack of training. Right? You think about the distrust. I just watched Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it's like, fuck the police, right? That shit. I don't sit there and say, well, fuck these guys for saying that. I sit there and say, what was it like for them
Correct.
to experience what they experienced, to try to understand why they say fuck the police? And by the way, if people don't know this, like the fuck the police song is like played at every police event and we all dance and sing to it.
Yeah.
So, but what does that come from? Nobody ever coming up with a amicable solution of how to police areas like that. And I get that it worked. It was spackle. You weren't building how to do it. You were sticking Band-Aids on things because that's how it was designed. And now we're at a point where that doesn't work anymore. It's not even accepted anymore. It's exposed if it's done via cell phone. So even though it worked, like these police academies, right? You said you did it. There was no accountability for it. They went to the academy. They're certified. People, it's a mystery as to what these cops learn, but they should be trained. And then we put them out into the field and nobody knew that they were screwing up because there was no recordings of it. But now that there's recordings, people getting screwed up, it starts getting questionable. What do these guys actually know? Well, nothing, because we're still using the same fucking training model from 1976.
Where do you put personality type into that? The instinct. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a cop, you are a certain personality type.
I think there's different personalities, and I think they have different fits in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have to understand how to manage that. I think all this stuff can be trained. And I think that I just know that leadership, even management, can be taught. And you can't expect the same thing from everybody. And you have to understand that. And I think from your quote unquote biggest bums to your hardest chargers, all need to be handled differently. And one broad brush does not paint a perfect painting. It does not how it works. I kind of look at like the remaining existing, like these old command staff, like, you know, I'm not talking about, I would actually argue that people in their early 50s, 40s, and 30s who were command staff could be changed. I'm talking about from that point on. Once those folks age out and go away, as we continue to sow seeds at the newer generation and also change the hearts and minds of those who are willing to listen because they're not as romantic with the ideas of how things always were, I think you see a real nice change in progression. We're watching it.
That's you explain it very well. And I think it's something I wrestle with, like, because maybe I am stuck in that old school mentality where I thought, you know, we're supposed to be.
I think you're killing yourself before you even start the journey.
Oh, why do you say that?
Well, because you seem to let your anxiety dictate your decisions. So everything you come up with, you're like, but they don't want to do that. Well, one time finding that out, maybe so, but you got to try it 100 times to see if that's actually the truth. And I think the more stuff you put out and the more energy you put into it, the more you're going to get in return. Like, dude, we get calls all the time.
Well, two things. First of all, you are a unique personality and you are cut out for what you're doing right now because
I'm trained.
Okay. But number two is you got to now force yourself to think back when you started this. I don't know what year that was. Was it 2004? 12? You were making decisions on important decisions based on what you knew about marketing, on what you knew about delivery, like venues. Like, should I approach police academies?
I wasn't even saying what should I do. I was just doing it. And then you get better at picking what works and what doesn't. So I wasn't even trying to guess. Dude, I had classes with 8 people in them, right? Like 3 months, 4 months soaking, and then 8 folks showed up.
Right.
There's many times most of my classes when I started were 16, 21, 8, 14 men and women. That was my first year to 2 years of teaching. And once in a blue moon, I had like a 90-person class out of nowhere. You know, so I didn't know, but I was not afraid of taking chances.
No, that's fine. But that's fine. But you made a lot of decisions that didn't work. Shit. You know, I'm sure you made decisions back in those early days.
Trial and error, man.
Okay, fine. But so when you see,
but how do you know what the error is until you try?
But you can't, just because I bring up a concern or acknowledge a challenge, it's not me getting in my own way. It's me, you're witnessing me thinking through that process that I know you went through. Because
thinking through the process is fantastic, but also inaction.
No, totally.
Yeah.
If it paralyzes you, it's useless. I agree with
paralysis, bro. 100%. It's a big thing.
No, I agree
and
with
I see a lot of people deal with that. So for me, dude, this weekend I went to Puerto Rico, and you know, I happen to run into a lot of Port Authority cops because I fly to Newark, and you know, I only have, for the first time they're seeing me, I only have a roller bag. And I'm like, where you headed to this time? I'm like, I'm going to Puerto Rico. And they're like, oh, really? Like for vacation? I'm like, no. Right? And I'll just backtrack on that story a little bit. I was invited to go to an event with people who could help me from a business standpoint. So very, very, very successful businessmen in Puerto Rico. I was invited to a very private event. When I say very successful, I don't know if any of us will ever touch the level of success that they're at. But we were supposed to go on this event. It was actually we were going on this big ass cruise thing. The boat broke. And, you know, like Thursday before I was going to leave, like 2 days before I was going to leave, like, hey, the event's probably not going to happen, but a couple of these guys are going to be there. And it was an expensive trip. It wasn't cheap, especially right now for me. And so I had to make a decision, and I wrestled with it for a little bit. But I had to just, like, I know what's going to happen if I don't go. But I don't know what's going to happen if I do go. And so, I also got stuck in Puerto Rico for 2 days. The flights got delayed and canceled because United's having staffing issues. It wasn't the weather. So I understood that that was part of the deal. And I got to tell you, I didn't come back with the bucket of diamonds, but I came out with 3. And those things will return 1,000-fold for me. Most people would have seen the what ifs and the anxiety of like, well, what if this doesn't work out? I'm just not going to go. And I just went because I knew what I would get if I didn't go.
It's funny. It's as you're describing this me sitting right here right now is a microscopic version of that. I'm battling a sinus infection. I'm on antibiotics. I'm going on a trip tomorrow to Indiana.
Fuck.
Frankie texts me saying, listen, you might be caught in Puerto Rico. I'm like, oh man, he's going to be in a bad mood when I get there.
No.
I'm all right. Maybe I should just put this off. I'll cancel this. Then I get here and I spent the last hour and 10 minutes talking to you about business, receiving a master class on running a company that.
I don't know if it's a master class. It's just.
No, but what you're describing is the value I receive of coming here, talking to you, and just you're giving me feedback on my social media and it sucks. And that's value, right? That's what you just described. I didn't have to fly to Puerto Rico for it, but that's kind of if you're open to it, receptive to it, receive the value you get from these situations that might not be obvious to you in the moment. It's important.
And that's what I tell these guys when they sit down and give me their time for nothing, for no cost. I say to them, I probably don't have a lot that I can give you back. However, I can assure you whatever you give me is going to 25 more people. And they like that. They're good with that. I'm not keeping it a secret. I'm sharing it. But let me also say something real quick. The fact that you thought I might be in a bad mood is comical because I've said this before. I'm a professional. And professionals are allowed to have feelings and have bad days and have bad circumstances and all that. But when a professional shows up to do the profession, they're professional. There are times where I've had some catastrophic mornings. I'm talking like catastrophic, like I need to start getting to like a mental institution before I go to work. And I've actually told Becca on the way in, like what I went through in the morning, maybe showing up late here, 10:30, 11 o'clock, but I'll work till, so I get the work done. And she has said to me on countless occasions, like, how do you just come in here and nobody would ever know there was anything going on in your life? Like, I'm not compartmentalizing it. I'm just a professional. You have a knee surgery scheduled tomorrow. Your surgeon has a bad tennis match this morning, gets pissed off, and his kid's late for school and crashed his Mercedes. Do you want him to tell you that he's having a bad day, he's not going to do your knee surgery?
No, you better put that shit on a shelf.
It's not that you're putting it away forever. It's just that when we're professionals, it's time to put your professional hat on. So as a police officer, I get that you're having a bad day, but you don't get to take your bad day out on other people.
Have you always been able to do that? Or is it something you had to learn to do?
I've learned how to be who I am today. One, through life, but mostly in the last 10 years, maybe with the influence of 1 or 2 cops out of the thousands that I know. Because you always get those like 1 or 2 stoic sergeants that are real, you always get that one guy, that one lieutenant. But I really have developed an understanding through outside channels, and namely those who live a life that I admire, not just for financial purposes, but also the way they see things. It's so much more thoughtful than the way I was taught to see things. And it's all true. That's the best part. It's like, I'm only taking a collective group of years, let's call it 10, of studying life, packaging it up, put it into this podcast, and giving out bits and pieces of all these things I've taken from all these people. So I think it's all about how you see it. And the crazy thing is, when you see it the right way, a lot of people don't like it. Because it's so much easier to fucking sit in the mud and enjoy the toxicity. Because it's hard to admit things like this. It just is. It's hard to admit that we're wrong. We should be doing things better. It's hard to admit that.
So what is that skill? What is it? What do you do? How do you when your flight's delayed the second time in Puerto Rico and you want to get home?
The difference between and or but.
Go on, explain that.
Yeah.
What is that?
So there's a book that I think everybody should read, and I was turned on to it. I haven't even finished it. And it's by Ben and Roz Zander. I've got to pull the book up in a second, but I think it's the Art of Possibility is the name of the book. You really have to be in a place to listen. I would suggest listening, if you're going to buy the audiobook, for 30 minutes at a clip, because I don't think it's as, there's a lot of lessons packed into it. You've got to do a lot of thinking on it, but one of the sections is the difference between and or but, and it goes something like this. And to paraphrase, I didn't make this up. You can go on vacation with your friends, get to Hawaii after you spend $20,000 on this trip, and say, we're in Hawaii, it's the second day, and it's still, but it's raining, so there's nothing we can do. So people say but a lot. Well, I got here, but it's raining, so there's nothing we can do. Or you can say, we got here, and it's raining. This means I get to spend time with my friends inside of maybe a hut or something, sharing stories and hearing about them and sharing my stories. Instead of doing this, now I get to do this. So there was nothing about that was that bad, where I couldn't say, well, this gives me an opportunity to do something else. You only get to react. And how you react.
That's stoicism, right? You can't react. You can't control the world. You can only control how you react to the world. It's if you can master that, you got the shit lit.
I work on it. It's a discipline.
Yeah. And
it's one of the disciplines that I try to employ, and non-judgment's the other one. I mean, I really try not to judge people. And I try to, with that non-judgment comes a side dish of empathy and compassion. And I would hope that if I did something that maybe didn't sit well with somebody, they had the compassion to understand of well, this happened, that's why that happened. You don't know why I did that. You don't know why I did this. You don't know why I didn't show up. Yesterday we had 2 podcasts. One big name guest. I'm sure it's easy to just cancel a podcast and just reschedule it at a later time. I'm hoping that person understood that it was out of my control. I really wanted to be here. Or they said to themselves, fuck that guy. I'm important. You don't cancel on me. So how do you want to be? We all make mistakes in life. How would you like to be judged? I would like to be judged with compassion and understanding. So why wouldn't I do that for other people? Hey guys, follow us on all social media platforms to include Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group. We have so much information going on every single day, and we don't want you to miss out on any of that stuff. So check it out. Go give us a follow.
See, that description of that philosophy, I've lived it in my life with my experience on a major level. Like I was given a curveball I wasn't ready for, right? Could have broke me. And it did. Spent a lot of years angry until I realized, wait a minute, there might be something here. I can't control this. I can control how I react to it.
That's it.
I can control how I pivot now, right? And if you get good at that, the first step is recognize that. The first step is understanding, okay, this is a challenge. I can now, I can deal with this, and that's going to be an important part of this process. But it's when you meet somebody who's good at it, it impresses you because it's not an easy thing to get on top of.
If life was the ocean, first of all, let's say this: you can't fight life. Just be very clear on that for everybody. You can't control life, and you can't fight life. So why not go with the tide?
Do you think that I think the major issue where people go down in flames in that area is expectation. Like you walk into the situation, you expect it to go a certain way. You expect you to show up to Puerto Rico and have your meetings and your seminars, and then get back on a plane at the airport, and you expect that. And people who get really good at that philosophy you described don't walk in there expecting anything. There's nothing granted.
Right. It's exactly how I see it.
Nothing is owed to me. Right. And that's another one. You're entitled to a perfect trip. None of us are. Right. So if you let go of that, if you aren't expecting perfect travel and you walk in there and then you're hit with a delay after delay, if you weren't set up expecting it, then it's not a big a blow as it would have been. You know what I mean?
I think it's nice
expectations get us hurt.
Yeah, I think it's nice when there are expectations are fucked up. But I think it's also nice that if you live like that, when something really great happens, it's 20 times more enjoyable.
That's where the gratitude comes in. The other side of it. If you're grateful for everything that does come to you, then you got this figured out.
I don't think anybody will ever have life figured out. I don't think anybody will ever have a life figured out. My uncle's 99 in September.
Right?
Yeah, I just try to pick his brain about things, and typically he at 99 is obviously has a fuck ton of humility. He's extremely humble, extremely fun, and doesn't give a fuck about anything anymore, even life itself. Not that he's abandoning life. He just doesn't give a shit. I think there's a lot to be said about somebody who understands 99 years of being on this planet, what actually fucking matters. So I said, Mike, did you think about death? He's like, I'm ready, man. I'm like, did you ever think you'd be 99? Nope.
Yeah.
I never thought. And then I asked him, like, what are the keys to life? He said he just never put thought into, like, thinking about things too much. He never, it seems like the overall theme is nothing ever stressed him out. When you have access to somebody who's 99, who didn't really misbehave in a way of, what can I do for myself? He's got a lot of wisdom, and they just come out in these small little chunks. So when you see somebody like this, you've got to... I've never seen the man get mad.
I approach those kinds of things like a game. And I think it was Jocko. Jocko said this. If I allow you to get mad at me, or if I allow you to make me angry, it shows weakness in me.
Yeah.
So if I was, I'm not good at it. I haven't perfected it. If I was in an airport, flight's delayed, I want to get home, I'd be like, I'm going to make this a game. All right. I'm going to be proud of myself tomorrow that I handled this healthily, that I was able to, that was some shit I went through. And look at me maturing. I handled that well.
It's nobody's fault, right? Like who are we going to start blaming when you're going to blame the girl at the desk who's 23 and this is her job?
Yeah.
Start screaming at her.
Right.
It's her fault that the plane didn't get here from Detroit.
Right.
What are we talking about here? So all you have is solutions to problems. And so the best people in life recognize what a solution is. And yesterday from the hotel, once I was done reading my book and once the time started getting close to boarding time, I planned out what my trip would be like at the airport. I did my research. I recognized what restaurants I would potentially eat at, what time they would close. And then I knew there was a lounge, and the lounge was maybe a 3-minute walk from my gate. I would have an hour left over, went to the lounge, hung out, and then boarded my flight. And if it got delayed, I knew where I was going next, or I had another hotel picked out.
You ever play this game? You ever, I don't know how, if you're religious or not, do you ever think, well, maybe this has happened for a reason?
Always.
I shouldn't have been on that plane
It's not even the plane itself.
Or whatever, yeah.
It's not that, you can't even guess what it is.
Right.
You might not ever know, because it could have been so detrimental that it preserved your life. So you'll never know.
This happened to me last week. I told you I had a sinus infection. Last week, I was supposed to go to St. Louis for training. And United, funny enough, canceled my flight. I couldn't go. I could not get, in 2023, I could not get from New Jersey to St. Louis in less than, my trip was 30 hours away. Wasn't fun. Had to cancel a commitment. Don't like doing that. I'm starting to think to myself, all right, there's a reason.
Oh,
there's a reason I'm not getting on that flight.
You'll never know what it was.
I do. Sinus infection. If I had flown.
Oh, you've been deaf.
It could have been bad. Because that infection came out the day of, I was supposed to be in St. Louis. So I was a day behind it. You know what I mean? Shit like that happens. You're like, maybe there's something up there. Maybe there was a reason I wasn't on that flight.
The world is full of energy. And I think that the more good energy you put out, the more good energy you get back. You're not going to get it all the time, but
sometimes it comes back a few years later. You know,
dude, I like this thing, and I really struck a chord with me. Les Brown is a well-known motivational speaker for, I think, since like the mid 80s. And he's a wonderful human being. I think people should watch some of the stuff Les Brown talks about. It's great. But one thing he talks about is bad bosses. And I'll just sum it up to this. If I didn't get treated like shit so many times in my life, I wouldn't be the thoughtful and compassionate boss that I am today. And the 70 people that quote unquote work for this company in some sense would be mistreated. But because I don't forget what it felt like to be talked to like I was a piece of shit, I don't ever employ that stuff. But I had to go through that pain to know what not to do. So while you might hate your boss, sometimes, I think Les Brown's thing goes like this. It's actually pretty funny. He talks about his ex-wife. So I hate that woman. But it's very funny how he tells the story. He goes, if my boss was so bad, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, if you hate your boss so much, how come you keep signing your paychecks? Because I hated her so much, she was right. That's why I hated her. He goes, so I quit that. I got scared. I quit. I couldn't take it anymore. So I quit. And that's when he went into like where his real passion was in his gift. And he entered into like, this fruitful life of endless money and stories back to his efforts and energies and was really using his potential to its full. And he said, thank God my boss wasn't good to me. So while you're dealing with this, it's that thing that's pushing you to where you're supposed to go. There's just so many things. Listen, life is never going to be easy. I promise you that. You will never have it figured out, and nobody is getting a pass. You are just not. It's not going to happen. So, knowing that, why don't we just take a new position of I can't control it. The only thing I can control is how I'm going to react to that. And it takes a second to breathe, sometimes step back, not respond, walk away from the situation and put some thought into it. So there's a saying that I really like, saying most of us are familiar with is, don't just stand there, do something. The real saying should be, don't do something, just stand there. And that removes the emotion-based reactions to a situation. And I got to tell you, I don't know if there's anything in the world that I find more unattractive in a human trait than emotion-based reactions. I don't mean that like you're not allowed to cry. I'm talking about when you're imposing bad behavior because you have no EQ or emotional intelligence on others and subjecting them to your bullshit because you are a child. I hate that. And I think that's how I grew up. That's probably where that hate comes from. A very emotional. My parents had, still to this day, have no emotional intelligence at all. It's very infantile. And when you have emotional intelligence, people find it very admirable. They really, really admire people like that. So knowing that, anybody listening to this, work on your emotional intelligence. And especially as a cop, you're going to get a cavalcade of different emotions constantly. It's a roller coaster. It doesn't mean your emotions have to be a roller coaster. It just means you're going to stay steady in the way that you're going to handle and respond to other people's emotions. Stay consistent with it. You can't control the situation. You just get to react to the situation. People have had everybody makes this mistake. Hey, whose fault was the accident, right? That's that, right? Well, it was yours. Well, what do you mean it was yours? And default, we're like, well, listen, motherfucker. This guy's going straight. Put yourself in his shoes. You put a fucking left hand. Well, he was going fast. No, he wasn't. Everybody who crashes into somebody says they were going fast. Everybody says the same thing. And they start pointing out, well, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and I think that's a violation of law. That's what caused the crash. That has nothing to do with this crash. Well, so you can go there.
Or you could say it's not my call.
Well, you could say that too, but you could also say, if you make that mistake and they start reacting that way, to react differently. Hey, I understand it's a hard thing to conceive. I'm giving you my analysis of it. I've been doing this a while. If you could imagine yourself, just for a second, being in the other guy's shoes. I get that there is a lot of pressure you're feeling because now you're talking about a deductible. You're talking about money out of your pocket. You're talking about points on your insurance company, your insurance. All these things are going through your head. But it happened. And that's what happened. So if you could imagine you were that guy in that car, you're just driving straight. Let's call it he's doing 35 and a 25, whatever it may be. You were doing the same thing. And a guy comes through a stop sign and T-bones your car. Would you think that you're at fault or he's at fault? Well, I mean, probably just think about it. I understand it's upsetting. Now, what I can tell you is this. For us, we didn't have to write tickets with crashes. I fucking hate that. I hate that there are general orders that somebody gets a ticket with a crash. It makes me nuts. Because talk about rubbing salt in the wounds from a police perspective, it's just disgusting. Yeah, you can say you don't work there anymore.
We had a dude who was that was his thing. Yeah, I was one of those guys. He wrote tickets, right? You want to hear shit, black and white. I'll give him credit though. When he drove home that night, his hands were at 10 and 2. Like, he lived it. He lived it. But his famous thing is young girl, she's like 19, single car accident, lost control of her car, hit a telephone pole. She was on a gurney getting loaded onto the rig.
Handing her paper.
Stuffs it on her chest.
Yeah.
Dude, can we be a human being? Right?
I know.
Is that allowed, please?
I know.
It's sad, man.
Well, it's sad because nobody's ever trained them appropriately. And on top of that, when your command staff catches wind of things like that, they should be intervening. Your supervisor should be intervening and putting a kibosh on that, because you can say you're not doing that anymore.
Well, okay, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful, because that can be twisted a little bit. That can be twisted as saying, "Oh, I was told I can't do my job. I was told not to enforce motor vehicle violations. I was told to stand down. I was told I don't have discretion."
Okay. You got to find the right
you got to be
communication,
careful, right? You got to. But that's the
I
dynamic.
think that we can get these men and women in their impressionable state in the academy when they're ready to listen and tell stories like this and say, when you guys leave here, just don't forget this story I told you. Don't do that to people. And then you never have to worry about it again.
It's
But we don't. We get the guy with the fucking crew cut comes in and shows you how to charge LiDAR fucking batteries, right? And then he takes you out in the patrol car, him and 3 other fucking dorks, and you sit on the side of the road and run radar. And like that,
and you march for 2 hours in the afternoon.
I'm just saying, like, my point is because you're taught this way, that's what you end up being. If you're just taught a different way, you get a better product.
This was like a therapy session.
Most of the time it is.
Yeah.
I get people crying in here all the time.
And it was a master class.
It wasn't a master class.
Not for me, it was.
I think it was a sharing of knowledge on the journey. And sometimes I have friends that are significantly more successful than me. And I'll tell them, like, you guys can agree we're all cut from the same cloth. You guys just have 15 more years in the game than I do. I have a friend who makes $8 million a year. Clean, easy. Been doing it since 18. We're 2 years apart. He's got 22 years in the game. I have 5.5, essentially. Maybe, and I'll even give you 7 to 8. He's got 2.5 times the amount of time in this game than I do. And so I see it like an imaginary road. He's at mile marker 11. I'm at mile marker 6. Maybe you might be mile marker 2. So doesn't mean I can't yell back at you and say, hey, go this way, go that way. It's a little easier. You'll speed up a little faster. There's less friction. Go around that rock. Don't go through that rock. It's not going to break. You're going to have a hard time. They're doing the same thing back to me. And we're all just kind of marching down that same road. I always see it that way.
I hope you understand that this had value to me.
Well,
and if you heard a yeah, but or something from me, it's not pushing back. It's just giving you idea of my thought process and what I have to deal with. And it's not to argue, but just, you know.
Well, I love butts. I hate butts. That should be like my quote. So when I have a conversation with somebody, I can hear those butts like piercing through my ears. I'm not saying that I'm judgmental about it. What I'm saying is probably the biggest thing I learned when I first started doing this, and I would say top 3 skills in life when we're talking about things like this, is to recognize excuses. You don't know it. You're just allowing your anxiety to dictate your future. And that is a significant mistake. I'm scared of it all, but I follow the fear.
Let me give you a yeah, but. Yeah, I'd
love to hear it.
This is a softball because I know you're gonna hit it out of the park. Do you think there's a danger of overplaying that, like not being tactical, not thinking through every angle?
If
like
it's not going to kill you, then why aren't you doing it?
Us.
Jump off this cliff, Dennis. It's 150 feet high. Yeah, but let's hold on a second. Very different because it's a life or death thing. Jump off this cliff, Dennis. It's 10 feet. You just saw 6 other people do it, or it's 20 feet because 10's kind of light. It's 20 feet. I'll even go 30 feet. You just saw 10 other people, including 10-year-old children, jump off and swim safely over there. If your yeah but starts showing up there,
Yeah, I can.
you're allowing your anxiety of the what ifs to dictate what you're going to miss out on. I'm not jumping off the 150-foot fucking cliff, untrained, into the unknown. So there's a reasonable, but when you're coming up with an excuse for why you're not doing things all the time, you are going to live a very meaningless life. Follow the fear. It is your compass. It is your North Star. If I don't like it, it makes me uncomfortable. I know that's exactly where I'm supposed to go. I have been comfortable with nothing in street cop training. Literally fucking nothing.
Have you ever had here's another but this is just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Have you ever made a decision where you say, nah, we're not going to go that way? You could tell yourself, that was just me being, pussy. But did you ever look back and say, man, I'm really glad I didn't do that?
Yes.
So how do you square that?
So you talk about logical decision making versus complete indecision. Here's the example. If I go to Puerto Rico, it may be uncomfortable. There's a chance and a likelihood that something great's going to come out of it, and it did. If I don't go, I know exactly what I'm getting. So the indecision to go is essentially what you're going to get. Now, if you said to me, hey, there's a guy, he's in the middle of the jungle in Africa, in the Congo, where there's a civil war going on, there's a 50-50 chance that you might get kidnapped and beheaded. But if you get there, the risk is not worth the reward. So that's a hard no. It's a decision maker. I'm not going. I'm staying here.
I'm not going to be reckless.
So I think that taking the easy way out is never the right way. It just, as long as there looks like there could be a good outcome on the more hard way, you're cheating yourself out of the easy way. Just the easy way. It depends on risk versus reward, I think. It's just the whole thing of risk versus reward. Anyway, it's 3:52, Jerry.
Yeah, we're talking all day. Thank you, sir.
We'll do this again, man.
It. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Jerry, tell them where they can find you. All right, so Jerry Turning is from episode 841. It was Your Purpose Finds You with Jerry Turning. He is an instructor who is the father of a autistic child, and his mission is to bring awareness of how to essentially work with autistic children in a law enforcement capacity when you're responding to a call that involves somebody with special needs. So where can they find your stuff? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
www.bluebridgetraining.com.
Bluebridgetraining.com.
Blue Bridge.
Okay.
Because cops are blue, autism's blue, bridge, get it? That's right. Facebook, Blue Bridge Training, all the social media, it's all Blue Bridge Training. And thank you for having me again, Dennis. This was,
and Jerry will come to your agency and do the training for you guys.
Absolutely.
But outside of that, it was awesome. Didn't know where it was going to go today.
It's a blast, man. It was, and I appreciate it. It was.
We're going to do this again because we didn't get to what we're supposed to talk about. This happens all the
never
time,
even
Jerry.
got
Don't
to
feel
it.
like you're the only one. It happens all the fucking time.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Hey guys, check out our upcoming training at streetcop.com. Don't forget, we have 50 instructors nationally teaching a variety of topics. These are the best classes you're going to experience in your career. We make sure of it. You're going to love it. I guarantee you're going to be thankful that you went. Check us out at streetcop.com for all upcoming classes in your area.